Let it rip! Welcome to the second episode of BeyTalk. Glad you could join me. I have to start off by saying that a couple years ago, I actually created a Bey for my friend of mine. My friend, the one who got me into the Ultimate Bladers on Facebook, for his birthday. He was a big Dragoon fan. He loved Dragoon with all of his heart. So I decided to make him a 0G, or Shogun Steel Bey. I have to say it was one of my best works I ever thought of. And it's kind of like an evolution. Now, another thing is that that a certain part was not a real part, so I had to tweak it a little bit. And sometimes whenever it comes to Beyblading, in the roleplay universe, you don't have to stick with just the colors of the parts that you're given in real life. You can customize the colors. So in this case, I actually had to take a previously existing part and two of the parts, three actually, and recolor them into different versions and rename it. Rename one of the parts. But after all that, he still loved it. You can basically just nickname a Bey if you want. Allow me to introduce you today, the Bey that I made for my friend. Allow me to introduce you to the custom Dragoon Bey. Let's get started. Today's combination will not be using regular parts. Well, it will be, but it won't be what you expect. Instead, we will be using the Dragoon warrior wheel and the face bolt, as well as the Guardian element wheel. And for the spin track and performance tip, it's actually going to be a special combo part that functions both as the spin track and the performance tip. Allow me to introduce you to the X Drive. This is a special part that has three different modes: attack mode, stamina mode, in which you set the position, the little handles there, to the middle, or defense mode, which it's all the way to the other side. I made this one specifically for him because it was the best that I could ever think of at the time with the parts I had. You can get the Dragoon parts here from the Ronin Dragoon Bey set, the Guardian part from the Guardian Leviathan set, and you can get the X Drive part from Diablo Nemesis. Now, for this, I actually edited a picture of the fusion wheel, or the warrior wheel, to be purple, since that was one of my friend's favorite colors. And I recolored this a golden color, as well as this part as well, because, as it turns out, his favorite Digimon of all time happened to be Angemon, and he went for a long time as Angemon Takaishi. I will put a link in the description for his channel if you wish to subscribe to it. So therefore, I colored this and called it Magna Dragoon XD. But in all retrospect, it's just going to be called the Guardian Dragoon XD, which is going to be cool. So, for so of course you know how to put bays together, of course, but well, I just like to show it on camera. You just fit the two parts together like so, making sure that the quote-unquote crystal is shown right there, and it'll pretty much stay in place. Now the next part is gonna be a little easy since you don't have to worry about individual performance tip or spin track. Instead, you just put the whole X drive component on, screw down the face bolt, get your tool out to do the final tweak, because I have made bays several times where I haven't tightened it all the way down, and the face bolt just pops right out and sends parts flying everywhere. It's happened, and it can happen to you, even in roleplay. So here we go. We have Magna Dragoon XD, or Guardian Dragoon XD. Yeah. It looks awkward. It doesn't have a normal spin track, but it works just as good. It gives it a nice little bit of elevation, actually. And this part right here can pretty much act as the spin track part itself. And since it's a left spin or reverse rotation bay, it has a pretty nice little spin steal ability. And not only that, I think that the combination of, I think actually the Guardian element wheel actually fits really well. I mean, as you can see, there's barely any, if any, overlap of one overhang of either part. It's pretty much perfect fit, meaning it's going to be more balanced out. Now, let's see how it fares with a test spin. First, defensive mode. Oh, look at that. It is beautiful. Sure, it has a little bit of movement, but then again, we're not in a regular base stadium, so it is going to move around a little bit. But look at that. It's got a good spin to it. I have to admit, as far as bays go, this was one of my best. I mean, it's very well balanced, thanks to the element wheel and the warrior wheel being pretty much the same size, identical size, good balanced, good weight distribution, very little wobble. And that was just in defense mode. Let's try stamina mode for the spin track, or for the performance tip. Oh my gosh, look at that piece of work. No wobble whatsoever. It is just beautiful. Look at that spin. If struck, it can end up going into either defense or attack mode. I'm not going to bother with attack mode because, as you know with attack tips, they just go berserk all over the place. Trust me, I say this now. Do not use an attack type performance tip on a flat surface. Save it for the base stadium. See, the X drive can store a lot of spin steal when it starts off in stamina mode, where it can just absorb spin steal from an opponent. But then, if things start to get hairy, then it can get hit and go into either attack or defense mode, in which defense will just will just knock out an opponent, because defense is the weakness to offense. Stamina is the weakness to defense, and attack is weakness to stamina. So basically, this thing has all the parts handled. It's a perfectly balanced Bey, I have to say. Well, not exactly perfectly, but it has its moments. As I said, this Bey configuration was for a friend of mine, the one who brought me into Beyblade, Angemon Takaishi. Otherwise, I never would have come up with this Bey in the first place. He was a real inspiration to me, and I have a lot to be thankful for whenever it comes to him. Yeah, he is pretty much like my biggest rival. And he loves this Bey. I have to say, it is really, really good. I've actually tested this out in a real Bey stadium against some of my other powerful Bey combinations, and oh, you'd be best off trying to steer clear of this thing. This thing has beaten 9 out of 10 of my best combinations. The only one that actually seemed to beat it was my personal Bey, one of my personal Beys that I used for this. And that's saying something. So, if you're ever thinking about trying a balanced Bey that can change modes, you might want to think about trying to use the Ronin, or the Guardian Dragoon XD, because it can steal spin, defend against attacks, and it can also become a rabid fighter if hit in the right way. Provoke it, and you'll be paying the price. Sometimes it's best to let sleeping dragons lie. So, I hope you enjoyed this episode of BeyTalk, and thank you for your time. Until next time, let it rip!